Hello everyone. Right. Are you able to see my screen actually? Right. Okay. Right. So let's wait for another one more minute for others to join in as well. Then we can start discussing about TCS NQT subject NQT topic. Okay. Right. Okay. Okay. So let's start our discussion on TCS NQT, right? Okay, so it's basically the national qualifier test actually, and I hope like everyone is aware of all the syllabus part. Okay, so whatever the things you see on the slide, this is actually your syllabus here. So we have different sections. So since TCS NQT, like TCS has revised its syllabus, like we have some quite different changes here for 2021 batches as well. So the first sections will be on numerical ability, where you will be given 26 questions and the timeline would be around 40 minutes, and follows your verbal ability and reasoning ability. And this is actually the area like which we will be focusing on programming MCQs and coding test. Okay, so this programming MCQ is completely dependent on the code snippets and language kinds of stuff. Say for example, like you will probably have 10 questions for which like you should be able to answer in 15 minutes, and after that like you will have separate coding test, which these two sections will be basically called as subject NQT. Okay, so that's the buzzword like what we'll actually use. So for coding test, like you will have two questions, so it will be like 15 minutes for the first question, and for the second question it will be like 30 minutes. So since TCS is going to use its own platform called as TCS Ion platform, and for its first round of exam, so we have some limitations there. So we'll also be discussing all those stuffs right now here. So the overall bigger picture here is, so this is the overall syllabus which you will be focusing on, and our focus here will be mainly on programming logic, which is your MCQs, and coding round. Okay, so this will be our focus. And for programming logic, so this is actually the according to the revised content. Okay, so the number of questions, if you just look around, it is only 10 questions, but it covers this wide range of area. Okay, so you might be getting some MCQ questions. Say for example, they would have given you some snippet of code. They would have asked you to find out what is the time complexity of that particular code. So you should be thorough with time complexity topics. So given, say for example, for an merge sort algorithm, what is the worst case time it is going to take? So you will have such type of questions when it comes to MCQs, right? And again, when it comes to input and output questions, and it will be something like a code snippet will be given and you will be asked to predict the output. So what will be the output based on the particular code snippet, right? So you will have all these kinds of stuffs. Okay, and whatever I have categorized here as part 2, so it has more uh, playing factor with respect to coding rounds as well. So if you are just thorough with all these concepts like stacks and queues, linked list, trees, graphs, dynamic programming and greedy hashing techniques and all, it will be like quite easier for you to go along with the coding part as well. So it actually it checks your basic fundamentals, right? So you might be wondering like what can they ask from functions or a recursion or an iteration. So whatever I heard so far is something like questions might be simple like, but the programming logic is slightly modified in order to make those questions a bit complex. So that is what exactly it is. Okay, so it's not too difficult to crack it at all. Okay, so it's very easy, but if you just plan it accordingly, like, you'll be able to do it. So is that clear so far, whatever I'm just conveying here? Or do you have any specific queries? You can probably post it on the chat window. Right. Is there any specific questions so far? Yeah. I hope it is clear so far. Right. Okay. So moving on to the next topic here. So this is just for your information. Okay. So as I said you earlier, we have some programming MCQs part and a coding round, right? So both will be under a section called as Subject NQT. So because this is actually the buzzword what your TCS Aeon platform is going to use in order to describe your programmable MCQs and coding questions and all, right? So the coding part is going to be called as Subject NQT. As I said you earlier, it is going to have two questions, one for 15 minutes and the other one for 30 minutes, right? So the first level of question which you are going to solve it for 30 minutes will be something like this, hands-on experience one. So that's the name they have given it for the first question, and for the next question it is hands-on experience too. Okay, so why I have added all these things in the slide is like you should not be uh, buzzing around like what exactly it is. So it all means the same. Okay, so it's nothing but the coding question. Okay, so the second coding question would be slightly trickier and complex compared to the first one. Okay, and for your general information, so based on the sections, whatever the things we have seen so far, so even if you have scored full marks in all the other sections and if you have scored least mark with coding round and all, still your particular acceptance is not fully done. Okay, so your TCS NQT interview rounds will not accept that. Okay, so this is actually your main section where you have to give all your main focus. Okay, so as I said you earlier, it has two questions, first one for 15 minutes and the other one for 30 minutes. Okay, so there is a slight difference with respect to the complexity. Okay, so we'll see a few examples here for now, then we'll just move on to the programming MCQs part as well. Okay, right. And over to the next slide here, some people might be confused of what language should we choose actually. So TCS Aeon platform offers all these 5 languages for now, and we have all C, C++, Java, Perl, and Python. And I just request you to solve it either using C, C++, or Java kind of stuff, because like I don't want students to do it on Perl or Python, because like in the previous years of question papers, like there were some random errors with respect to Python compiler, like say for example some library importing and all. So people have faced it actually. So I hope like this time like they have rectified it, but I will just suggest you to go with the other languages. If you have idea of all the other languages as well, like you can just probably like you can choose any one of the languages, right? So it is completely of your particular choice to solve the particular program, right? Okay, next thing is about the test cases section. So as I said you earlier, you have two programming questions here, right? So each questions will fall under one of these two cases. Okay, so for case one category, like the total number of test cases would be around 6 test cases, out of which 3 will be the sample test cases for which you can just see the output. So this is the input and this is the output, so you will be able to see the test cases. Okay, what is the expected output or not, and 3 will be the private test cases, so which are in other words hidden. You does not know like what is actually the test input, but it will be validated for your particular code as well. So it actually means like if your complete score is around 100 marks, and if you are able to solve only 5 test cases out of 6, and you'll get marks only for those things actually. So that's the case here. And for case 2 category, so you have around 6 public test cases and 6 private test cases. Okay, so it's more or less the same, similar to case 1, just increase in the number. and depending on the complexity of the questions, either one of these will fall into. So for 15 minutes questions, I guess like case 1 will be applied more, and for 30 minutes category, like it will be like case 2, a slightly more complex one, right? Okay, and your score will be mainly calculated based on all these number of test cases which are actually passed as well. Okay, so this is just for your general information. Is that clear so far? Is that clear so far? Okay, you can probably like post it on the chat window so that I'm just having a look at the chat window, like if there is any specific doubt with respect to anyone. Yeah. Moving on to the next one, and this is just for your information. So in the previous NQT, TCS NQT test, like we actually had questions on see command line arguments. Okay, so you're supposed to provide a command line arguments, and your program logics will work based on the command line inputs actually, right? So for this time, like we don't think like we'll have a command line argument type of questions for the coding area. Like probably like you should have an idea for the same for MCQs. Okay, so you might expect some few MCQs based on command line inputs for C language and all, right? But for other languages, like it is through scanner or some other means actually. Okay, but for MCQs part, like you can actually focus on the command line programming. So that is one specific area like which you have to focus on. And I hope the screen is visible to everyone. So this is our newer area. So as I said you earlier, coding, it has two sections, right? So these are all the areas like where we actually have figured it out for the past years. So for the past years, when we have consolidated all the placement papers, like the majority of the questions, like what they have actually asked for TCS NQT will fall under one of these categories. Okay, so when you just look at the topic, like it looks much simpler, but as I said you earlier, there is a slight change with respect to the programming logic just to increase the difficulty level. Say for example, if they are asking you a normal Fibonacci series, okay, so normal Fibonacci series program, okay, to generate write a program to generate a Fibonacci series for n numbers and all, right? It seems quite simple for you, right? So what they might do is something like they can have their test cases which evaluates to the correct output within shorter amount of time. Say for example, time complexity they might consider, so they might have a test case which gives a particular output with lesser time complexity. So you should just look around with the other ways of doing the same program. So you have a mathematical direct formula which actually computes your Fibonacci series, right? So you can just get the nth term of the Fibonacci series using that specific formula. It actually takes order of 1 complexity. But if you just do the same with the recursion kind of stuff, then you are just trying to increase the complexity of the program. So the same program with respect to the way how you approach, so it becomes a slightly difficult for you to just make all your test cases pass. So that is one level of thing. In other words, like what they might can do is they can just give you the starting two numbers of your Fibonacci series, which will be provided by the user, and your program should take that as first and second, and it should just derive all the other things as well. So you should probably use recursion on. So slight changes and all, like it will be added. So one more example for you to just so we'll actually be discussing all these kinds of programs right now, but I'm just giving you a broader view of what exactly it is and all, right? So if you look at number conversion, I hope like everyone here is comfortable with binary, octal, decimal, hexadecimal and all. So they might give you a new radix system. Say for example, base 17. So they might give you a particular value like which is, we know for hexa it is only till F. So they might extend it a bit more just to accommodate base radix 17. So they might give you some inputs for which you have to calculate the equivalent decimal value on radix 17. So number conversion plays a major role here. So we have quite number of problems which were actually focused on number conversions as well, right? Okay. And for today's session, like we'll actually see something on coordinate geometry as well. So there might be an problem statement for which like you have to understand the requirement and you have to create a logic to complete it. So you have a very good example here right now for coordinate geometry, and for operations of matrices it is quite simple, and operations on arrays is also quite simple, but they might uh, trigger you in a different way. For example, like for an arrays, like they might have you some negative numbers and all, and they might just twist a bit in terms of programming logic. They might ask something like, what is the continuous subarray which has maximum sum and all. So they might have some negative values inserted inside the array elements as well. So they'll make it a slightly trickier for you to handle it, right? And these were all the focus areas. So based on the past questions what we already had for TCS NQT, right? So this is what I actually had. So since I have already said, so few students have faced compiler kinds of issues with respect to libraries. Like I suggest you to work on with other languages. So it's not like you cannot do it with Python or Perl, like you can still go for it. But since there was actually some feedback for the earlier placement with respect to TCS NQT, like I'm just asking you to just, if you know other languages, like you can just feel free to do it on the same, right? Is that clear so far? Right. Uh, yes, as far as TCS NQT is concerned, here your TCS NQT score is completely dependent on all the sections, the marks you scored on all the sections, especially on the coding part. So that's where exactly it is. I hope I answered Ritesh Rishi's right. Okay. And this is one more thing, as I said you earlier, like we had some compilation things and all, right? So this is based on the feedback of a certain student like who had actually taken TCS NQT on the for the past years and all, right? So just keep it in mind whenever you have completed your code for the particular programming, or if you are in the middle of completing your particular coding question, the moment if you have an habit of compiling it often and trying to check what exactly is the output or error and all, right? So normally from the TCS Aeon platform, like a normal compilation, since there are a huge number of people who are basically taking test on the duration, right? So your server will be much busier, so probably it takes to the minimum of 30 to the maximum of 60 seconds of time for a normal single compilation task to complete, right? So during this time period, like your screen will freeze so that you will not be able to edit your code at all. And so I hope I just suggest you to just complete your particular logic. Once you're sure that your particular logic will work for sure, then just try to compile it. So doing your compilation process frequently might consumes lots of time, okay, because the compilation time here is going to be around 1 minute here, okay. So I'm just talking about the worst case here. I just want you to keep those things in mind when you're giving up your TCS NQT test, okay, right. So now it's the time to code actually, okay. So let's see some few problems. So based on whatever the things I have just given here, so let's code, okay, right. This is one of the questions which was actually asked in previous TCS NQT, and I just want you to spend around some 1 minute of time in understanding what exactly it is. So we are going to solve it in real time right now, okay. So I'll just give you some 1 minute of time so that you can just go through these things, right? So the problem statement here basically says that our horticulture, like we had several persons like who were actually involved in, say for example, the gems, right? Stones, right? So Navaratnas and all, right? So astrologer kind of stuffs and all, right? So there were few peoples like Amarasimha and other things, Varahamira, etc. and all, okay? So what they're actually having here is like they wanted to know a final position of a particular person who basically starts from the origin 0 comma 0, and he actually travels in a following scheme, right? So what they are talking here is all about, I'll just mention it here. So there is a person who starts from the origin 0 comma 0, and he is traveling by a particular scheme which is mentioned after the next slide, right? So I'm just giving it here. So this is the scheme through which he is actually moving on. Okay, so initially let's assume this is your x-axis, sorry, this is your x-axis and this is your y-axis, and this is your starting point, which is nothing but your 0 comma 0, right? Next, from this position he is traveling 10 units of time. He is trying to travel 10 units of time, but they have not mentioned in which direction it is. Either it is towards his right side or left side, or above, bottom, or upward. So they haven't mentioned any specific things here. It is up to us to decide. He first turns and travels 10 units of time. So I just pre-assume that he is taking right direction. Okay, he is taking right direction. It may not be true as well. Okay, but I'm just starting it by a guess. So he is reaching a point here, and the distance here is actually 10 units of time. Okay, so it takes 10 units distance to reach this particular position. So when you look at this, so the starting position, his coordinate is 0 comma 0. The moment he just reaches this position, he is going to travel in x-axis. So this is completely your x-axis, and this is completely your y-axis. So what happens here is your x value gets increased, but your y value remains the same. So here it is going to be 10 comma 0. So this is his position. Okay, so he first turns and travels 10 units of distance so that he reaches this position. So consider this as step number 1. Next thing is his second turn is upward. So from whatever direction he is trying to move in an upward direction. He is trying to travel to a distance of 20 units. So here the distance is going to be 20 units. So he is reaching a position here. When you look at the position here, so this is the position here. So your x value is going to be the same. It is going to be 10. So here it is going to be 10, and your y value is going to be 20. So here when you look at it, for step number 2, he is going to reach this point, which is nothing but 10 comma 20, and this second thing is done. Now for the third turn, he is trying to turn to the left. So from this point he is trying to move in this left direction. He is trying to move how many units? It is going to be for 30 units. So we know clearly that this length is going to be 10. This is going to be 10. But he has to move around 30 units, right? So here this is 10, and from here he has to travel 20 units. So this is the point he basically reaches here. This is the area he reaches. So here he is traveling from 10 comma 20 to this particular point. Okay, so here the 30 units is covered something like this. So here it is 10 units here, and in this area it is going to be 20 units, right? So likewise he basically travels. So he reaches this point, and again the fourth turn he makes towards downward direction for 40 units. Again he is traveling from here to bottom. We know very clearly that this distance is always 20, right? So this distance is always 20. So he has to travel 40. So he will travel till here, right? So here it will be another 20 here. So this will be another 20. So this is the point he reaches, right? and from here he is also taking the fifth turn, right? So when you just mark the number of steps here from 0 comma 0, this is step number 1, this is step number 2, and this is step number 3, and this is step number 4, and for the fifth step he is to the right again. So just this is your trickier word here. He is trying to move to the right again, meaning that he has already taken right direction. He is trying to move again in that same direction. So this is actually the trickier point here. So we first pre-assumed that he starts in the right direction. So whatever we have pre-assumed is right. Okay, first step he has moved in right direction, and again now he is trying to move in the same direction towards right. So again he is trying to move for 50 units. 50 units is 20 units till this one, and again 30 units is here. So here it is his fifth step, right? So this is what they were talking about the scheme here, okay? And thus he travels every time in an increasing the travel distance by 10 units. So if you look at the first step, he travels 10 units of distance. For the second, he took 20. For the third, he took 30 units. For the fourth turn, he took 40 units. For the fifth turn, he took 50 units. If there is step number 6, okay, again it is going to use the same strategy, okay? So again he is going to take all these angles, okay? So that is what exactly it is, okay? So he is going to move for a step number 7, right? So from 5 to 6, like he has to move again in this direction, so till this it is the same. Again he has to move from here towards right, and that has to be 10 units higher than the previous one. So previously he has traveled his 50 units, now he has to travel 60 units from this position towards his right. So this is what the bigger picture of it is, okay? So it seems slight complex in understanding it, so I have just drawn a graph of the same for you to have a better understanding on it, okay? Right. So let's move on to the next slide. So this is the graph what I was actually talking about. So this is the initial position 0 comma 0 of that particular person, right? So this is his starting position. As I said, he's traveling, he's taking a turn and he is traveling 10 units. So this is the 10 unit distance. He reaches this point, which is nothing but step number 1 from origin. So here there is only change with respect to the x value. Your y value remains the same. So from 0 comma 0 he is trying to move towards 10 comma 0. Again from step 1 he is trying to move in an upward direction by reaching this point. So here he is moving 20 units. So this distance is going to be 20 units. Okay. So here x value remains 10, but y increases to 20. So this is his particular position for step 2. So this question is all about, you have to get the input step number from the user and you have to print the appropriate x and y value of that particular step, okay? And for step number 3 he is traveling towards his left and he is traveling for a distance of 30 units. So here it is 10 units, here it is going to be 20 units, and here he has to travel 30 units. So first 10 units will be in this quadrant and remaining 20 will be in this quadrant. So the moment he reaches this point, so here if you look at it, x will be minus 20. So here x will be minus 20, but y will be the same 20. So this is what the solution for step 3, right? So from step 3 he is going to travel downwards to reach step 4. So here he has taken 10 units. So here it is going to be 20 and here it is going to be 30. Here he has to take 40 units of distance. So since this is 20 and one more 20 here, so that the total distance here he travels is around 40, and this point is exactly, there is no change with respect to the x value here. because minus 20 remains the same, so there is no change with respect to x value. And y value, so here it was in the positive 20, now it has reached towards the negative 20 because the total travel distance was 40 units. So this is the position of the person at step number 4. Again, for step number 5, he again travels in the right direction. So that is what the trigger word here. So as it is pointed, so here he has to travel 50 units. So here it was 40 units for the previous case. Here it is going to be 50 units. So he is going to travel 50 units here. So here the distance is 20. And again here he has to travel 30 units in order to make it as 50. So here he is traveling 30 units and here it is 20 units. Put together it is 50 units. So by the time he reaches this specific point, the x value will be 30 here on the positive side. And y value remains the same here. So that's why it is minus 20 for step number 5, right? And for step number 6, what the question has actually clearly shown is the above sequence repeat itself and thus he travels. So for any other steps other than this 5, okay, so if you are just talking about 6th turn or 7th turn or not, the same thing it is going to repeat. 6th turn will be the same again this one, and 7th here, 8th here, 9th and 10th. Okay, so it is going to proceed in such a way. Again, when you just come here, we stop here. Again, this one cycle is completed. Now again you have to treat this as origin. Again you have to start. Again this is actually the case. We have started from origin towards right. So again we have to start from here to right for the next step, because this pattern is going to repeat again. Okay, so this is the first version of the pattern here, and this is the second version of the pattern which is starting here. Okay, so from here what they have clearly mentioned is the distance what a particular person is going to travel is going to be 10 units higher than the previous case. So here when you look at it, 30 in this quadrant and 20 in this quadrant, so totally put together it was 50 units what a person has actually traveled here. Here he has to travel around 60. So if he has to travel 60, so from 30 he is, I'm just adding 60 here so that my x becomes 90, and again there is no change with respect to y value because the movement is towards right and there is only increase with respect to x value. So y still remains the same, right? Again, for step number 7, so this pattern is done here. Again, what is the direction we have taken from step 1 to step 2? It is in the upward direction, right? So similarly we have to take the next direction in the upward area for the next step, which is 7. So here he has traveled around 60 units. Here he has to travel around totally 70 units for the next case. So from here, so he is actually he has to travel in the direction here, right? So there is no change with respect to the x-axis. So x-axis, the point lies on the same x-axis here. So x remains 90 here, but on the y part there is going to be a difference. So you are going to increase to 70. So 20 it goes here, it gets minused here in this quadrant, and again on the top it has to travel another 50 units of time, so that here by the time it reaches step 7 the value of y is going to be 50. Assume there is step number 8. What will be your prediction? What will be the output? We have seen this direction upward, then from this point it again has to travel towards left. So there will be a movement from here to towards left, and the number of units it is going to travel is, here it is 60, here it is 70, and here it has to travel around how many units of time? 80 units. It has to travel 80 units so that it reaches another point, and I just want you to think of what will be the coordinates value for step number 8. Can you please think and put your answers on the chat box? Right. Yeah. After fifth step, it should move 20 units only since step 1 got 10. So plus 10. After fifth step. So this is step number 5. After step 5, it is like 10 units higher than the previous one. So here the previous is, this is the total distance. For step number 4 to step number 5, this is the total amount of distance it has traveled. Okay, you should not just look at only this segment area. Okay, so from this point, step number 4 to step number 5, it has traveled around how many units? 50 units, right? So that was actually clearly given in the question for from 4 to 5. Okay, so it is going to be plus 10 of previous. So here previous it was 40 here, right? And here it is going to be 50, and from here 50 it is going to be 60. So it is going to add 10 10, okay, than the previous. So previous it was 50, now it is 60. Again here it is 60, from 5 to 6, again for 6 to 7 it is going to be 70. So that's how it is going to be proceed. Okay, right. So these are all the questions from the earlier TCS NQT placement papers actually. Okay. So I'm just talking about the trickier part here. And from this specific point, you have to travel 80 units. Okay. You know very clearly that till this, it is going to be. So from 0, comma 0 here it is 30. And on this line it is going to travel, right? So when you just look at the change here, so 90 is this location, so here it is 50, so it has traveled 50 here. So what will be the next step here? What will be the next step here? Step number 8. Can you please reply it on the chat window? Yeah, exactly. Right. So I hope you understood the question right now. Okay. I hope you all understood the questions right now. Okay. So how to do the same in programming? How to do the same in programming? How will you approach the same? So it seems to be like a trickier one, okay? But actually, when you look at it, like you can just solve this with a few case statements, switch case statements, okay? So it's quite easier to solve it. Okay, so let's code it. Okay, so all we have to just do here is we have to keep track of the directions. Okay, for the first case, it is going to be towards right. Again, once right side is done, if there is any other step which has to be computed, again there should be a direction change, right? So again, there should be a direction change towards upward. Okay, so likewise, like we have to work it out. Okay, so let's go to the coding part area. Right, right. Okay, let me. Okay, is this screen visible to everyone? Is this screen visible to everyone? Yeah. Okay. So, so let me solve the same with C. It's a basic C language. Okay. So I'm just trying to write the first main method here. So first n is going to be the number of steps. Okay, so this is going to be user input. So I'm just using scanf to get user input for number of steps. Next thing is I'm just going to have some x and y values at initial positions. Say x is equal to 0 and y is equal to 0. And we know clearly that the distance is going to be increased 10 units higher. So I'm just having a variable to store distance as well. Now I just have to think of the logic. So here let me put return 0 since it is int main, and let me have a while loop. So I have to travel till this step number has reached. Okay, so I'll just have an while loop here. So once doing specific operations, what I'll do is I'll just try to decrement the value of n, so that if I just give 6, I have to calculate from step number 1 to 6, right? So it has to decrement it. So that's what it is. Okay, so for the first case, so I'm just going to have a switch case value here. So here let me have a character value here. So I'm just going to have character ch is equal to, so initially I'm pre-assuming that it is going to move on the right direction, so I'm just having it as r. So here it is going to be ch. So once you have got this, so you have a case here which matches with this ch value. So if it is going to be on the right direction, what is the thing I'm going to do here? We know very clearly that from 0 comma 0, if the first case is going to be r, we are going to increase the distance to 10 units, right? So it is going to be like the value of x is going to get incremented. So x is going to be, initially it was 0, now it is going to be added with distance. Now it becomes 10 here, x becomes 10 here. Okay, right. Now the total distance has to be changed. So distance is equal to distance plus 10, because for further future computations the distance has to be increased 10 units, right? Again, next thing, we do not know whether this n value is 1 or 2 or 3. Okay, if it is going to be 1, it stops with this case. Okay, it is going to break with this case. But if it is going to be 2, again we have to calculate the next direction. So once right is done, again the next direction is going to be towards upward. Okay, so here what we are going to do is we are going to change the value of ch to upward. So if there is any loop which is going to run after this, and if this while loop is going to continue, it will just choose the appropriate case. Okay, so that is how it is. So we are going to repeat the same for all the other cases as well. So for right direction, it is done. If user case is equivalent to upper. Okay, so if it is in the upward direction, what is the change we are going to do? We clearly know that if you are moving from a specific point x comma y towards upward direction, your x value will not change, but your y value will be changing, right? So here your distance, your y value will be updated with the distance value, right? So here there will be change with respect to y. Again, distance has to be increased with 10 units. Again, once upper direction is done, we know very clearly that the next move, if it is there, it is going to be on the left direction. So we have this L here for future computations. Okay, for any other cases, if the while loop still is active. Okay, and we are going to repeat the same for, so once L, so here our current direction is L, so we are traveling towards left direction. Again we know clearly that x value is going to be modified. So you are moving from a quadrant which is on the right side towards a quadrant which is on the left side. So definitely your x value is going to be decreased, right? So here your x is going to be decreased, so it is going to be x equal to x minus distance, and there will not be any change with respect to the y value here. So that's how it is done. So once left is also done, then our next direction is going to be on the downward direction, so it is going to be on the D. So once this is done, what we are going to do here is, again I'm just going to add one more case here. So if my current direction is D, what should I do? If my current direction is D, I have to travel towards, so I have actually traveled downwards, so again I have to travel towards the right direction. Okay, right again. So again it is going to be the same thing here. Okay, so let's not have it as R, let's have it as again here, because again it will just go back to the same loop here. And once the downward is completed, we know very clearly that if you are moving towards downward direction from a top quadrant, your y value is going to get minus. Okay, your x remains the same. Okay, so it's all something like a graph kind of stuff. Okay, if you just plot points on 4 different quadrants, you know from one point to another point, when you just move a particular person, like it will be like you know very clearly that x whether it is decreasing or increasing, or y whether it is increasing or decreasing, right? So again, like we have a case here which is actually called as again, so it has to repeat the same. So if it occurs again, okay, so x is going to be x plus distance. So what I'm just trying to do here is, I'm just trying to, if there is any again, so if there is any other step apart from whatever it is mentioned here, again you have to go with the same. Again distance will be plus equal to 10, and I'm just changing the direction here to be starting again from R. So again the same loop continues. Okay, so this is actually a small basic program which we can solve with the help of a while loop and switch case itself. Okay, so let's check the inputs, right? So let's run this code. Right, I'll just reload this page. So for step number 1, it is actually going to give an output of 10 comma 0. So if it is taking to, so the loading time is quite high here. So the logic here, it is actually the very simple one. Okay, so for the first case, you're assuming the direction to be right, and the travel distance is going to be increased for x with respect to 10 units. The overall distance gets changed, and once this is done, we are going to change the direction towards upward. Okay, you may not know like whether it will break up with this one. Okay, so let's assume n is equal to 1. So this is just a test case here. So if n is equal to 1, so we are assuming x and y as 0 comma 0 and ch is equal to r, so that it comes here and it evaluates this one and it breaks and it quits here while loop. So when it is x gets modified to 0 plus distance, which is basically 10, so that the overall value becomes 10 for x, and here the distance gets modified to 20 here for the next iteration, right? And here again the direction change is going to be on the upward direction. So once this reaches this break statement, it comes out of switch case, and here you are decrementing n again. So it was n equal to 1, again n becomes 0. So while 0, it just comes out of while loop. So here what you have to do is you have to print your values of x and y. Okay, so once you are out of this loop, while loop, right? So you have to print the values of x and y. So let me print it here. So print, so here let me print it as percentage t. Here it is going to be x and y, right? So I'm just going to click on run. So if you just talk about test cases, for step number 1, it should output 10,0, and for step number 2, it should output 10,20, and for step number 3, it should output minus 20,20. For step number 4, it is minus 20, minus 20. So it goes on something like this. Okay, right. So here let me put step number 4. So for step number 4, it basically prints minus 20, minus 20. So we know it very clearly here, right? Let's evaluate for step number 8. Okay. So I'll rerun the program again for step number 8. So it's 10, 50. So I hope the program actually works, right? Okay. Now let's move on to the next one. Is it clear for everyone here? Whatever I'm just discussing here, is it clear for everyone? Yes, right. Okay. So let's move on to the next one. And this is one more problem. Like I just said, like we have some variations, right? So there is a slight modification with respect to the questions, so to make it much more trickier, right? So here you have a question called as a speech 17 problem statement. So you are actually given an input number, which is basically a 4-digit value, 4-digit number to the maximum I'm just speaking. Okay, so you have to whatever is given there is nothing but the base 17 radix. Okay, you might be comfortable with base 2, base 8, base 10, base 16 and all, right? So they are just trying to add one more radix here. So we know very clearly for hexadecimal, this is going to travel till f. Okay, but they are trying to increase the value till 16. Okay, so which is g, means that if you have an g value on the input, it is still valid. Okay, so here when you talk about the first case, so you have got an output called as 1a. Okay, so let's assume a normal case for hexadecimal first. Okay, so if they have given you something like this, okay, if it is going to be f, we know very clearly that f in hexadecimal is exactly equivalent to 15, okay, in normal decimal value, right? So how come you arrive at this solution? You know very clearly that f is basically 15, right? So we have something of this sort. Okay, so if it is going to be 1a, so let's assume here for our first test case. Okay, so this first value has to be mapped with a here. Right now it actually means 10. So 10 multiplied by, here they say the base value is 17, so it is going to be 17 to the power of, for the first time it is going to be 0. So we know very clearly that anything power 0 is going to be 1. So you are going to get the same value again, right? So for 1 again, it is going to be 1 into 17 to the power of 1. So again here it is going to be 17. So if you add both these values, you will get a value which is equivalent to 27. So this is how it is computed, right? So you have to write a logic such that you have to convert this given base 17 value into its equivalent decimal value, which is this one. Okay, so this is all about the question. Okay, so solving this on a different programming languages, it's very easy. Okay, so since on my previous version, like there were some requests like, can you do the same in C, can you do the same in Java? So what I have done here is I have just used Java to solve this. So let me do this here. Okay, I hope the online compiler is visible for you, right? Let me remove this question. So let me do this one in Java. So you can solve this with the help of hash map and all. So you have different means to solve this, but I prefer doing it with hash map because like the amount of time it is going to take for getting a particular value, it is going to be very less if it is going to be on hash. Okay, so you are going to do hashing kind of things, right? So hashing always takes a lesser amount of time. Okay, even you have more number of elements. Okay, so it is going to have a lesser time complexity when you're trying to solve it. Okay, so what I'm just going to do here is, so I have to get an input from user. So let me have a scanner here. So I'm going to get it as string. So this is going to be n. Okay, so whatever I'm just getting, I'm just having it as n. Okay, so let me have it as yes as well. Okay, so it's not going to change. So what I'm just doing is, whatever I'm just trying to get, I'm just trying to convert that to uppercase as well, so that if there is any specific alphabets inside it, like it will just get capitalized. Okay, so that's the thing here. And before having the scanner as well, like we'll have something called as hash map here. Okay, so people who knew Java, like they'll be familiar with hash map. So it's something like an data structure which stores its value based on key and value pair, right? So whatever I just store it inside hash map, the character is going to be the key. Okay, and this integer value, what I'm just going to give, it's going to be the value here. Okay, so I'll have it as hmap new hash map. So here I'm just giving it in the generic way so that any other values will not be accepted. So we know very clearly that hash map has to have some values coded inside it. So if you want to add some elements inside it, you have to make it with the output method. So we know that for A, it actually means 10. So yeah, I'm just going to do the same for B. It is going to be 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And here it is going to be 16. Here it is going to be D, and here it is going to be E, F, it is going to be G. So it is actually for base 17. Okay, radix 17. Why I haven't included all the other values before is because we know very clearly that for 9 it is going to be 9, for 8 it is going to be 8. Okay, so there is change only with respect to these values, right? So I've just made it here. So I have just mentioned only capital letters here because even if user is inputting a lowercase alphabet, so since we are doing in two uppercase here, it will always convert that to an uppercase so that we'll find an exact key here so that it will match it along with that specific key here. Okay, so now let's do it this way. So I've got this input here. Next thing is, what I have to do is I have to put power, right? 17 to the power of 0, 17 to the power of 1, 17 to the power of 2. Okay, so for that power I am just creating a variable called as k. So the initial value of k is going to be 0. So this is mainly for power, right? And now I'm just going to get input. So I've just got an input here and it is available right now with S. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to traverse this string character by character. Okay, what I'm just going to do is I'm going to traverse from the last element. So here let me have an let me have int I is equal to, I have to travel from last element. So s dot length, we know it is string, so it is a method here, -1. So this will give you the last index. So that is the last index of the last character here, right? So then I'm just checking whether I is greater than or equal to 0. Then I'm just doing I minus minus, so that it just starts from the last character, moves towards the 0th index. Okay, so here I have to make a check here. So if the digit what I'm just looking for is basically an alphabet, I just want to check the appropriate value for that particular alphabet, and I have to do some calculations with respect to that. And if it is going to be a digit like from 0 to 9, I'm just going to use it as such. I'm not going to refer to this specific table at all. Okay, so hash map at all. Okay, so I just have a wrapper class called as character. So there is a method called as isLetter. So this method will basically be used for checking whether a particular character is alphabet or not. Okay, if you throw a number inside it, it will just return false. If you throw an alphabet A to Z, any of the character inside it, it will be true here. So we can do it here. So we have to pass the character here. So we know very clearly that if you want to take a character, it is a string dot character at this value I. So this character I'm just passing it inside. I'm just trying to find out whether it is an alphabet. If it is true, what should I do? So if this is true, I just have a particular variable called as result. So let me create it as well. So let me have it as long result is equal to 0. So this result now is going to be whatever it has already got plus, because here the condition is it is a factor. Okay, it's actually an alphabet here. So hmap dot get. So if you pass the key value here, it will give you the exact value. So key value is nothing but this one, this character. This character is my key. So s dot caret I. If I just pass this value inside, what I'll just be getting is I'll be just getting a value here. So assume it is going to be A. If the character is A, I'm just going to get 10 as an output for this case. Okay. So what I have to do, I have to multiply that with some other value. That some other value is nothing but 17 to the power of, if this is going to be the first digit, it is going to be 17 to the power of 0, right? So we have math dot power function, where we specify the base value first 17, and here you have to specify the power value. For the first case, the power value is going to be k. So we have it here k plus plus. If you give it as k plus plus, what happens here is at this position the value of k is going to be only 0, and after this line, if someone calls k, it is going to increment and it is going to have 1 for the next iteration. Okay, for this current line it is going to be 0, right? So this is what we are going to do here, and assume this, whether if this if condition fails, what should we do? Because we have some other options like special symbols and all, right? So we have to verify that whether it is a digit or not. So we have a function called as sDigit, so where we pass it as s dot caret I. If this is going to be true, what we are going to do, we are going to just result is equal to result plus, we are not going to do a map here. If it is going to be 0, it is character 0. We are going to convert that into an integer 0. So what we are going to do here is, so s dot caret I, whatever may be the value here, I'm just minusing it with 0 here. So the difference will be the ASCII value. Again, it will be the same integer value here. So again, I'm just multiplying it here with another value here, which is nothing but math dot power of 17k plus plus. That's it. Okay. So this is the overall one, what I'm just trying to do here. So since this math dot power will always return the value in double, I'm just going to do a typecast here. So I'm just trying to convert this into an integer, right? So now this is done. So once if all these things are actually done, like what we can do is like we can print the result here, system.out.println. So here we can have it as result, right? So since we have used a scanner here, we have to import util package, import java.util.star. It takes a bit of time here actually. So let this load actually. Okay, so this is how we will actually proceed. Okay, right. Okay, so let's see a few more questions on MCQs as well. Okay, so again when we just talk about so these are all the different questions, like these are all the simpler ones, like they'll ask you to replace the vowel consonants and other things as well. So these are all the easier ones, like you can do it in within 15 minutes of time. Okay, and this is one more important question here. So is this screen visible to everyone here? Is the screen visible to everyone here? So here you might get these kind of questions. So you have higher probability of these type of questions here. Okay, so around 49 times like you have these kind of questions on your TCS NQT. Okay, the question is all about, they'll give you a series and they'll ask you to find the nth term of that particular series. Okay, so most probably like if you look at the series, like it will be something like this. Okay, so they'll not have an single series. Okay, it will be a combination of two different series. Okay, in this case if you just look at it, the first value is 0, second value is again 0, and third value is 7, and again the fourth value is 6. So there is no quite some connectivity here, right? So but if you look at the odd positions and even positions, so if you look at these things, you will have that connectivity here. So if you look at it, it's increasing with respect to 7. So this element plus 7 gives you the third one. 7 plus 7 gives you 14. 14 plus 7 again, it gives you 21. So it increases by 7. So you are going to add plus 7 to it, okay, to this term, right? If you look at the other one, 0, 6, it is plus 6. Again 6 plus 6, it is going to be 12. 12 plus 12, it is going to be 18. Again it is going to increase in this range. Okay, so depending on the term, what you are going to do here is you are going to increase it either by +7 or +6. So this is the approach you should actually take here. Okay, so you should decide whether the term, what they are actually asking is whether it will fall into the odd term or even term, and you have to have two different values like a and b. One will be incremented +7 and the other one will be incremented +6 wise. Okay, so depending on the nth term, like you have to give the output for that particular case, right? Is this question clear to everyone? So you will get these kinds of questions. Okay, so this is all about the series kind of questions. Okay, so if you want to solve this and see, like, it is very simple to solve. Okay, so let me solve this one alone. Okay, so then we'll move on to the programming part, right? So I hope, let this continue here. I'll duplicate it. I'll have C here. So here what I'm just going to do here is I'm just going to calculate around some, say for example, some n is equal to 15th. So 15th term, okay, in the series. Okay, so you know very clearly that the series goes something like this: 0, 0, 7, 6, 14, and 12, 21, 18, 28, etc. So it goes to something like this. Okay, so you have to calculate the nth term here. So you'll get such type of questions on the TCS NQT, right? So here I'm just going to have an integer value called as I, n number, so which term it is. So here I'm just going to fix it as 15. So you can also get that with the help of scanf and all, right? And I'm just going to have a value called as a is equal to 0 and b is equal to 0 for the initial case. So one I'm just going to increment with 7 and the other one I'm just going to increment with 6. Okay, so I'm just going to have two terms here. Okay, so I just use scanf here, percentage t ampersand of n, and I'm just going to run a for loop. Int I is equal to 1, I less than or equal to n I plus plus. So I have to calculate the term, right? So what I'm just going to do here, so the logic here is I'm just going to calculate what is my I value. I'm just trying to divide it by like modulo 2. If it is not going to be equivalent to 0, then I knew for sure like it is going to be on the 0, 2, 4, 6, 8 series. Okay, so what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to add a with 7, and if it is not the case, what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to add b with b plus 6. So this will focus on 1, 3, 7, 5, 7 kind of elements, position elements, right? Okay, and here once this is basically done, what I'll do is I'll do a check here. If n mod 2 is not equal to 0, so what should I do? So I should just minus 7 from this a, and I should print it. So printf percentage t, sorry, percentage t term sub series is percentage t. If this is not going to be the case, I'm just going to print it as 6, right? Okay. So this is about the code. Okay, so we are going to get it this way. Okay, right. So this is your programming logic for serious kind of question. Okay, so it takes, the loading time is actually slow here. Let's have values like 15. Right. So this is the simplest way of doing it, right? So let me use some other JTotal website. So I'm just going to run it. Right. Okay. The execution time, it is quite delayed here. Okay. So this is the output actually. Okay. So we'll just show you like once if this is up and running again. So let's move on to the slide back. Okay. So this is the question like what we were discussing right now. And we have another series something like this. Okay, so all you have to do is like you have to find out what is the relations between odd terms and what is the relationship between even terms, and you have to figure out the logics accordingly, right? Okay, so always the nth term will be a dynamic input from the user. Okay, so this is one more section which is basically on the programming MCQs part. Okay, so the questions might look very simple, but when you just look at a small minor details, if you just miss a small minor detail, like you might end up with an appropriate error actually. Okay, so this is quite simple, like everyone will actually be knowing it. Okay, so what is a special symbol, like which is basically allowed for a variable name? So we all know what it is, underscore, right? So from C, like we actually say it. Okay, all the other things are actually not used. Okay, but we'll get into a slight trickier one. So this is something related to the library functions. So most of your questions, okay, from C, if you look at C language, we have basically some libraries like standard lib and string.h and method, etc. Right? So they might give you some specific functions which are not part of your library, and they'll just ask you to figure out what is the one which is not present or what is the one which is correct. Okay. So here, if you just look at it, string copy is there, string length is there, and string uppercase is there, but string pointer is not there. Str is available, but this is not there. So this one is not actually a valid one. Okay, so we'll move on to the next one. So can someone just tell me like what is the output like we'll get here? So here we have I is equal to 5, and here you have a character which is equal to single quote C. So here it is going to be I plus C. So whenever you just add a character value, so the C actually has this character, right? So whenever you add a character input to an input I, what it is going to do is it is going to convert this character into its equivalent ASCII value. So we know for sure that for alphabet A, yeah, for lowercase a. Okay, so for lowercase a, it is going to be, what is your particular value? 97 ASCII value. For lowercase b, it is going to be 98. For c, it is going to be 99. So here it is going to be 99 plus 5, which is going to be 104. So this is the one, right? And for this one, again, so you'll have these kinds of questions. Okay, so which basically says like absolute of a. If you know what exactly this absolute function will do, only then you'll be able to solve it. If you pass any specific values, positive or negative, it is always going to return only a positive value here, right? So we have code snippets which are similar to these kind of things here, right? So let's take this one. This is the most popular one. Okay, people will pre-assume that if you just have double quotes, okay, if I have four percentage symbol in double quotes, it will just print four. Okay, it is actually not the case. It will print only two percentage symbols. Okay, so always if you just put percentage in double quotes like in a printf statement, it will be treated as a format specifier. So it is treated as a format specifier for whatever the values you are going to give here. So if it is going to be percentage d, so for this decimal value you are going to just specify a format specifier here. So here this is actually the value and this is actually the value, and these two things, first one and third one, is going to be the format specifiers. So this is the actual value. So you will get two percentiles which will be printed as part of this code. Okay, and moving on to this question, right? Can someone just give me the output here? What exactly will be the output here? Because these are all the questions which were actually part of TCS NQT, okay, for the programmable MCQ type. Okay, so if you just look at the main method here, I is equal to 3, and this for loop will run as long as I is equal into 300. Okay, so people will just forget to just notice this percentile here, sorry, the semicolon here. So the semicolon is nothing but the truncation part. So this particular thing line has nothing to do with this for loop here. So we are just going to find out what is the exit condition of this for loop here. So we are going to start from 3. We are going to increase the I value with 3 in multiples of 3. So first time I is going to be 3, and second time it is going to be 6, and next time it is going to be 9, and next time it is going to be 12. So it is going to keep on increasing all the way till 300, right? So even 300 is inclusive because based on this condition, so 300 is also inclusive. Okay, so once 300 is also done, you are going to increase the I value by 3. So it will go to 303. So it is only at this value of I you are going to exit from this for loop. So when you try to print out the value, when you just try to print the value of I here using your cout function, it will print 303. Okay, so chances are something like people will fail to notice this one, so that they might end up in an error. Okay, and this is one more thing here. So they have given I is equal to 97, which they have initialized it here, and they are just checking whether it is greater than or equal to 4. Yeah, it is obviously, and they are just trying to check out what is the exit condition here. So if you look at it, so I is basically 97, which is the first value. I'm just checking whether it is greater than or equal to 4. So here they have mentioned that this code actually computes 97 plus 94 plus 91 all the way to 4. So if you see the difference here, 97 to 94, it is 3 minus 3. And from 94 to 91, again it is minus 3. So if you have somewhere I minus equal to 3. So this is actually your answer. So this is nothing but I is equal to I minus 3. So this will be the appropriate substitution here, such that this code computes this series correctly. Okay, so you will have these kinds of questions here. Okay, and this is one more area. So here instead of so you might be wondering, so beware that if you have an if loop without any flower bracket, always the immediate following line will be the uh, true condition. Okay, so if this if evaluates to true, this is actually one line of code which gets in computed, right? So it just gets run. Okay, so if you have an expression something like this, always do remain here, your expression will always evaluate from left to right here. So if it is going to be this case, so here the value of a is going to be 2. So here it is going to be 2 minus minus. It means that currently at this position the value of a is going to be 2 only, but on the next area like it is going to be decremented. So by the time it comes here, the value of a is going to be 1. So here it is going to be 2 minus minus. At this position it is 2. So after post decrement. So here the value becomes 1. So here it is going to be minus minus 1. At this position itself, the value has to be decremented. Okay, so it becomes 0. And moving forward, wherever a is going to be used, it is going to be represented as 0. So if of 0 is always an false condition. Okay, so your if loop, if it has any values which is positive or negative, it is considered as true. If it is going to have a 0 value inside it, it is going to be treated as false condition. It is going to evaluate as false. So the storm will not get printed. Instead, Jerry will get printed. So the output here will be Jerry, right? So we'll have these kinds of questions, right? And for skipping one iteration, we know for sure very clearly that it is going to be continue. If you are breaking it, it will just break that entire loop and it will come out. Okay, even go to is not the right answer here. So only continue will be the correct one to skip one iteration. Okay, right. And these kinds of questions. Okay, so like I'll just show you here. So we have two values here, high as 21 and m as 16. So you are just running a while loop. You are checking the condition whether 16 is lesser than 21, and you are just checking for the multiples of 3 here between this range. So make sure that your high value is not included here. So your high is 21, so you have to check only till 20. So from 16 moving towards 20, you are going to look for multiples of 3, because that is the thing which will make this if condition true. So it is going to be 18, and after 18 it is going to be 21. So because we are crossing 20, like we are not going to consider this 21 here, only 18 will be the one here which will pass this if condition. So if num is equal to 18, then what I'm just trying to do here is I'm just going to see out num plus 1. So it should output 19. Okay, so that's actually how the code works here, right? So there are some quite trickier points here. Okay, so that's it about today's session here. Okay, so I also have a few inputs for you as well. So we have actually a flash sale Friday which is happening, and we have some students coupon code which is also available. Okay, so the students coupon code is actually around NQT 499, and if you are just enrolling it for the TCS NQT 20 days challenge at this price, and you will actually be able to practice the previous days challenges like which were actually given earlier, and you will be able to watch the recordings like which you have missed it from the live expert interaction sessions. And we also guarantee an 100% cash back if you think like you did not get passed through to this TCS NQT. Okay, so if you are just failing it with TCS NQT 2021 test, like you will be able to refund it. Okay, so if you have any specific doubts, like you can just actually ping back on that. Okay, so that's it for today's session, right? Okay, you have any specific queries? Do you have any specific queries? So here it is, it has calculated. If you have any specific queries, you can just ask here. Right. Okay. Thanks everyone. Yeah. Thank you.